Welcome back to another segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons. Today I'm joined by a special guest. Singer, songwriter, actress Sally Boyden is joining me. She played young Tess in the episode The Children's Carol. Please welcome Sally Boyden. Hi.
Hello, Judy.
Welcome. We did it.
Thank you. We did. I know. Years in the making.
Definitely. I know. Yeah. This was very special because you're one of the people who has stayed in touch with members of the cast over the years. Yes. And we've lost track of so many people that it's always so much fun to have a chance to reconnect.
Yeah. Oh, it is.
Yeah. And of course, you've maintained a pretty close, special relationship with Kami over the years that you met during the filming of the Children's Carol, right?
Yes, we did. And 47 years later, we're still in touch all the time. And I've traveled all over the place. She lived in London for a while when I was living in London. She used to come over to my place and I used to go to her house. And she would make these wonderful African meals or Moroccan food, and and then all through the years, to all our travels from New York, London, Los Angeles. So very special.
And you are now based in LA, right?
Yeah, I'm in Los Angeles.
Okay.
I sort of spent my teens here because I came here when I was 12 to do the Waltons, and then I stayed for about 6 years. And I've been back and forth, but it kind of feels like home because those teenage years are so formative. I always feel, I know I'm Australian, but I really have spent not much time there in my life because my career sort of took me everywhere. So LA has always felt like home and has a place in my heart. So I've been here now this time about 15 years. I was in New York for 6 and then London for a long time. But all the time, Kami, we've never forgotten a birthday or Christmas. And every time something happens, we talk, or we didn't have Zoom in those days. But yes, we were in touch a couple of days ago. She's just delightful. And she's been there for everything and really special. I think she's my longest standing friend, actually. Is that a weird way to say it? I don't mean standing up or sitting down. But yeah, she's the longest friendship of my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
So take us back to... because you were cast quite young and you were already, people probably don't know much about your early life and childhood and how you came to be cast in the Waltons.
Well, that's quite a story. I was on television as a 7-year-old, singing and dancing. And then I got offered a movie, which was my first film.
And this was all in Australia. So you were...
This was all in Australia.
Born in Australia.
Born in Melbourne, yes.
Okay.
My hometown, yeah. And so I was really just singing and dancing. So I did a film called Barnaby and Me. And the producer, it was Sid Caesar was in it and Juliette Mills played my mother. And I'd never acted before. We had a great director, Norman Panama, who did White Christmas. I didn't know this until about a year ago. He wrote and directed White Christmas. And I do remember that about a week before we started actually shooting, he said, come for a meeting with the director. Beautiful, gentle man, just wonderful. And he explained how there's the main shot and then the close-ups. He took me through all the technical thing and how the lights work, which was really helpful. And all I had to do was learn my lines. And I actually didn't watch it until about 10 years ago. And I thought, how did I do that? I didn't really know what I was doing, but I pulled it off. And Juliette was wonderful. And Sid was hilarious. Anyway, the producer, Matt Herman, he called Dad and he said, they're releasing Barnaby and Me in the United States. And I think Sally should come over and get an agent. So we arrived in Los Angeles. I know it was a Wednesday morning. We got here at 6, went to the Beverly Hilton. And Matt said, I've got a surprise. We're going to 20th Century Fox for lunch. So I was thrilled. And we got there and I met Charlie's Angels and Starsky and Hutch, got autographs for my family. So we were standing in the commissary line and Gary Berghoff from MASH, who played Radar, he was next to Matt. Matt and I there, and they knew each other. And he introduced me to Gary and said, this is Sally, she's Australian. And Gary Berghoff said, "You've got to call Lorimar now." And Matt said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "They're trying to find a girl Sally's age who doesn't have an American accent because it's an English accent has to be done." And I'd watched Oliver, Judy, so many times in Australia. So I just put on the good. So anyway, so Gary Berghoff says that. Then we go and meet Betty. Betty calls Lorimar. I wrote, this is my first day in LA. It's about 2:00 in the afternoon by now. We rush over to Lorimar. I get the sides. Larry Dobkin, I'm sure you remember.
Love Larry.
He was the director. Oh, wasn't he gorgeous? And I did 2 scenes, and I used my best Cockney accent like that or something. And by the time we drove back to Betty, Betty was on the phone negotiating the deal. And
Wow.
it was, that is bizarre, isn't it? So I just remember sitting there when we got back to the hotel, like, okay.
This is easy.
No, I didn't think that. I kind of thought, well, it's a bit like a movie. It's like no one's going to believe this story. Thankfully, I have lots of witnesses. I had dinner with Matt and his wife, Helen, not long ago. Or no, actually about a couple of years ago. And so he's a witness. And that chance meeting led to this. And I'm talking to you. And I think I went back to Australia for a couple of weeks and then I arrived. And everyone was just so welcoming. I felt so comfortable. And I thank you and all the cast, Michael delightful, Ralph delightful, Jason, John, obviously, and Kami. We're the same age. She's June the 19th, I'm May 21st. And that was it. Just clicked.
Wow.
And I remember I had to cry. And I'd never cried on film. I'd only done one film. And I was kind of nervous, but I nailed it. I cried on cue.
Wow.
And actually the crew were like, wow. But I was like, but then afterwards I got really upset. And Kami came with me and sat with me outside the front door to the side. There was a little perch thing. We sat on there. God, that set was beautiful, wasn't it? And the house. And she said, this happens to me. Said, I don't think about something sad, but then and I was like, I don't even know what I'm crying about now. But that was a big moment. And I was really proud of myself for like 5 seconds. I was like, oh, well, I cried. So then Kami and I just stayed in touch. She was letter writers, and she'd say, what music are you listening to? Because you know what a music fan she is. And we've been through pretty much everything together. In fact, she knows everything about me.
Wow.
So cool.
And of course, her brother, Jeff,
Jeff, yeah.
played your little brother.
He did. He was delightful. And there's some really cute moments I remember, like, because the story is that we've come from England, we've been in the war, and we're a bit, freaked out and what have you. And he's gone mute. And of course, eventually he speaks when David Harper, playing Jim Bob, hooks up the I don't know what they call it. I've forgotten what it is, two-way radio, but he finds our mother. And that's the first time Jeff playing, oh my God, Pip. What was his name? Pip. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And Pip speaks for the first time in the whole, and he hasn't spoken for a couple of years. So it was a good episode, actually. Two-parter.
Very sweet. And it was, 2 hours. So you were able to spend more time with us than the normal guest actor who comes in. So you were in a lot of scenes, you two.
Yes, I was. Yeah, we were. And he was great. Just the whole thing felt like home. I mean, the Waltons has the image it has, but it actually was the same on set. Everyone was so warm. And the crew, imagine, that crew were just fantastic, weren't they?
Yeah.
Everyone was it was like clockwork. It was just brilliant. And there were no egos. I remember no egos, no drama. Everyone just worked together. It was like a family. You'd know more than me. But and I felt so welcome. And I wasn't even nervous after the first day. I just felt right. Wardrobe, makeup. I didn't wear much in those days, obviously. And then off we went. Oh, there's a funny, cute thing about Kami, because I cry in that scene. I went back to Australia and they had to get crying sounds. So Kami did the looping. So it's actually Kami crying when I shed my tears. And she called me and she said, guess where I've been? I was in Australia and she called and she went, I have no idea. Where have you been? To an Elvis Costello concert, because we both loved Elvis Costello before everyone else did. She got great taste in music. And she went, no, I just looped your tears just come from the studio. I said, oh, that was fun. Thank you. So we had a laugh about that. We still laugh about that.
Wow.
Lovely woman. Yeah.
Well, and the parallels between now, of course, you weren't coming from a city that was being bombed and not sure if your parents were still alive, but here you were just in a new country and in new surroundings and all new people. As actors, we draw from different things. How much did all of that make it easier, or do you think it didn't make any difference one way or the other?
Well, I remember that I was very lucky to have that experience with my first film because I knew the tech side, and the Waltons was a much more challenging role. And when I read the script, I cried. So it really moved me. So the material, actually, I didn't do a method thing, but I did put myself in. Beth was my name, I think. I should know this. Anyway, Tess.
Yes.
Tess was my name, Tess and Pip. So I sort of imagined what it would be like if my father died. That's kind of what I did, but I didn't plan that. When it was Larry Dobkin's wife who played our mother, and she was the voice. And I said,
is Daddy there too?
Oh, no, my dears. I'm afraid we lost Dad.
And I just started crying.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, I knew I had to cry, but I just read the scene the night before about 4 times, and I knew my lines. I never had a problem with lines, such I probably would now, but I didn't then. So I just did it. And because it was such a calm set, do you remember? Of course you do. Well, I'm just talking to you. It was so calm. And it was just like, right now I'm going to do this, and I'm supposed to cry there. And it happened. And I had to cry again in a couple of other things, but that was my moment. I was really, I watched it about, 5 years ago or something. And I was like, oh, how did I do that? It was a bit like that. But the whole thing, I remember every single thing about it was such a wonderful experience. And so it obviously stayed with me forever. And then you found me again, and I found you. The last time I saw you was at the Wilshire Ebel for a Walton's reunion. And just a beautiful part of my life, which has stayed with me. Obviously, I'm talking to you.
Yeah. No, it was, how long was it? Because you went back, you went back to Australia after you filmed. Were you back there in December when the show aired in the US? When were you able to see the episode?
Betty, my agent, Betty McCart, who co-produced The Godfather, I had no idea. She took me, what happened was, I went back for Christmas because I was offered a part in Lassie, The New Beginning, which was a revival of Lassie. I did eventually get the part, but I had to be there for Christmas, and I saw it. But Betty had a little party, and in Encino, I lived there for a long time with her, and I didn't really get to watch it properly. So I've seen it since, but everyone was asking me questions about the Waltons and about you and about Michael and Ralph and Kami. And so I spent a lot of time just sort of trying to watch like this. And I made sure I watched the crying scene. I was like, excuse me. Because I knew I'd cry, but I didn't know if you'd seen it. I didn't know. And I didn't really think about it. And I saw my tears start, and I'm like, oh. But then I watched it subsequently. And then I got the Lassie part. So I went back to Australia, I think, and then I came back to LA and filmed Lassie, which was also a pretty wild time. It was great. I had to drive a car in front of the back projection. And the continuity girl, I'd never driven. I was 14, I think, by now, 13, 14. And she came, she was really sweet. I remember her name was Teresa. And she said, Sally, you're doing too much of this. Just hold still. And I was like, okay, thanks. But that was while we did it at Paramount, so that was exciting. And that was going to be a series, but it didn't get picked up.
Oh.
And then I did a film for Curtis Hanson, who directed LA Confidential and many other films, won an Oscar for that, for writing it. I saw him actually before he died. I was playing at the Viper Room with my band, and he came and I said, thanks for coming. He said, I wouldn't have missed it for the world. And it was his first film. He was 30. And that was a beautiful shoot. And we shot it sort of roundabout. It's sort of a deliverance for teenagers. It's not very violent, but it's got an edge to it. And that was really fun. But yes, I was in LA for a long time. And
now, in our show, you played a little English girl. And then when you were back at, Lassie, do you also do an American accent?
Yeah, I was very fortunate because Betty set me up with Robert Easton, who I had no idea how famous he was until he was on in memoriam. And then I read something in the LA Times about him. I had no idea. So I went out to see him, and he was at a beautiful house in Pasadena. And he recorded it for me. And we spent about 3 hours together. And he'd do exercises for from the, further. See, I can't do an American accent anymore. I probably could if I concentrated. But I spent 3 hours with him, and I would listen to that. And then I got very American during that. And then I did Little Dragon straight after. So I actually was very, very American accent. But now it's a mixture, my accent. It's kind of people who say you're from London. Well, I lived there a long time, but I'm actually, Australia comes in if I talk to my sister. I go straight back into an Australian accent. But the American accent was a bit of a challenge. I think the first day, I said, how's my accent? Because they had the rushes. It must have been the second day I had the rushes. And she said, you need to work on it a bit. So I did. And we reshot the first 2 scenes or something. And I was fine. Actually, I haven't seen that for a long time. But it was great. Really lovely.
That's wow.
And Lassie, there's 3 Lassies. I hope I'm not giving anything away. There was the pretty Rudd Weatherwax, who's passed on now, but he trained the original Lassie.
Wow.
Oh no, and all the Lassies were descendants of the Elizabeth Taylor thing. But he has a pretty one, which is for close-ups. He has they have a stunt Lassie, who's amazing. And then they have the sort of the actor Lassie, who it was fascinating watching him train with these dogs. The first day, we're up at Big Bear. We shot the last scene first. You know that happens, of course. And in movies. And we're up in Big Bear, and I was sitting down, and Rudd Weatherwax just said, that's Sally. You like Sally. Be nice to Sally. And the dog came over and just jumped on my lap. And I'm just petting him.
Oh,
it was fascinating to watch it. And all these dogs beautifully cared for and just manicured and gorgeous.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then but your initial professional work was as a singer, and that has been more of your career has been in music and as a singer and songwriter, which, I don't know that I don't remember if I knew when you worked on the show that you were already a recording artist in Australia. And there would be no reason necessarily that our fans would know that then or now. So take us through that.
Well, I started on a show called Young Talent Time, which was an Australian version of the Mickey Mouse Club, very similar. 8 kids, 4 boys, 4 girls. And we were on at 6:30 on a Saturday night. And it used to beat the football. We were on Channel O at the time. It's now Channel 10. And the football was on 7. And we would crush them every week in the ratings. It was live to air. But I got spotted at a football game. Family weren't show business at all. And I was kind of cute, I guess. I didn't know. I was actually a tomboy. I could dance a bit because I wanted to be like my big sister, Mandy, because she did ballet, so I had to do ballet. And this guy who was the host was sort of Dad was in the social club at the football thing, and they were sort of acquainted. And he said to Dad one day, asked about me. So we were in the car. My team won, so I was in a good mood. And we were driving, and Dad's just driving. And he went, Sal, can you sing? And I said, no, but Mandy can, because my big sister's a great singer. Or choir and opera, great singer. I said, no, but Mandy can. So we got home, and he said, oh, you've got an audition for Young Talent Time. And I said, what? I don't know what do you mean? So I explained what happened. So I learned Pa from Oliver.
Okay.
And I could dance, but I'd done school plays, but I was never in my mind. In fact, the first thing I ever wanted to do, Judy, which I ended up doing, is be a songwriter. I wrote my first song when I was 4 in the bath, and I still remember it. And we had a piano in the house, so I taught myself how to play the piano. And then all of a sudden, I'm on television. So I did the audition, and I remember I was wearing a purple dress, really pretty dress, and I remember there was a spider in the corner. I was 7. That's scary, isn't it? There was a spider in the corner, and I just looked at Papa, that's how it goes, swaying, and occasionally looking back at them. And then, yeah, I could sing in tune. I didn't have a strong voice. Now I do, because I've been singing for such a long time, and I had a great singing teacher. And then I went to the dance room, and the routines were quite elaborate, even for a teenager, and I was 7. And I nailed it. And she had the biggest smile on her face. My mum remembers back. Maggie walked out of the audition room, and she was just beaming. We sat there for about 15 minutes, and they called us in, Mum and Dad and me, and they said, oh, would you like to start next week? And I'm going, oh, whatever. Yeah. And
will there be a spider?
Yeah. And I thought, okay. They got me a singing teacher, but the schedule, Judy, was unbelievable. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, rehearsal, Saturday, live tour, Saturday night. I had 1 day off a week, and that went on for about 3.5 years. And because I was little, see, the rest were teenagers, so I think the next one, the oldest, was 13, and I'm 7, and they put me in the front of all the dance routines. And I look back and I'm like, well, I was kind of cute. I was like, part of my appeal, I was very shy. I wasn't razzmatazz, how like they come out sometimes. I don't even know the names of them, but, hi, I'm such and such, and I'm going to do this. I wasn't like that. I was kind of back. I just did what I was told. And and apparently that was a lot of my appeal. It said I stood out because I was just
real.
Like, yeah, exactly. I'd never thought of it that way, but you're right. So I became a massive star, and then I did a record called Littlest Australian, which everyone knew about, and all the girls were thrilled. All the crew were great. It was #1 and everything, and I was still in the show. And one night, that's right, they started putting me in the back of all the dance routines, and there was an unwritten law: every single team member had a solo every second week. That was just how it was. Well, I didn't have a solo for 8 weeks. And I thought, hang on, this is a bit weird. And I was on the front, like on the newspaper all the time. I got a gold record. The Prime Minister's wife gave it to me. And everyone was happy for me. All the other kids were thrilled. But I started getting a few little snide remarks, like the lighting director. They put me in the back all the time. So I knew something was up. I wasn't stupid. I was like 10, but I wasn't an idiot. And that sounded a bit obnoxious, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And even the other kids were saying, why hasn't Sally had a solo? And then no one would answer anybody. Huh. So I walked through from the makeup room, we had to walk through the green room, and all the parents were like, oh, look at her. Oh, yeah, you think you're so great, Sally. And I'm like, what? Not happy. And I walked in. I remember I was right at the back. This thing, we were dressed as dustmen or something. Must have been doing Chim Chim Cherie. Used to do songs like that. In fact, it was Chim Chim Cherie. And the lighting guy went, snotty little Bitch. And I went, this is not, that's it. I went, live to air, click. And I just remember thinking, I'm not coming back. My dad said a really good thing to me when I started when I was 7. He said, if it's not fun anymore, just tell us. So I did the last show. Mum and Dad, they were really cool. They weren't stage parents. They'd come and pick me up. Sometimes Mum would come and sit and hang out with, they weren't snobby or anything, but they had 3 other children,
Mm.
And so I got in the car and I just said, can you please call John tomorrow? John was the producer, co-producer and the host, and a really good family friend, and say, I'm not coming back. I said, it's not fun anymore. I'm not going back. And I meant it. It was like first story on the news. Sally Boyden leaves Young Talent Time. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Wow.
And I had a real separation between, because inside, I only knew how famous I was because a lot of kids were kind of not too nice to me. Strangers, I mean. You would have had that a bit. You must have.
Well,
Did
we
you
ran
have problems?
into it in school with other kids making fun of us.
Yeah.
We all did. We all had that. Yeah. The jealousy, whatever.
Yeah. How did you cope with it?
Well, I didn't have to be there very much.
That was always good, wasn't it? Yeah,
and I was already 14 when the series started. So, I didn't go back to high school in my senior year.
Okay.
So, and up until then, I'd only worked here and there, so I didn't get it so much then. But in high school, I'd come back and think, oh, where's John Boy? Hi, Mary.
Oh, God.
So, I just kind of ignored it as much as I could. And
that's all you can do, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I remember being that's why I liked America, because I've been on stuff, but I got recognized a few times in the street, but not like Australia. I could not go out. I went to a restaurant once, it sticks in my brain. And Lassie was huge, and Sammy Davis Jr. took a shine to me. We were on the same plane. But we went up to the lounge, and Sammy Davis Jr. was there, and she says, come with me, I know him. I'm like, oh, hang on. I was very shy, actually. Nothing like you'd expect. My mum still says, I have no idea how you did it because you were such a shy child, and I was.
Mm.
And so we waltzed up, and I was in economy. And Sammy said, no, she's coming with us. So I sat in first class with Sammy Davis Jr. and his things. We played backgammon and cards, and he told stories. And it was just hilarious. And I thought, my dad's going to be so thrilled. And he was so nice to me. Mm. So anyway, we walk off the plane, and one of his guys comes over. It sounds a bit weird, isn't it? But one of his companions comes over to me and says, I'll come over. Sammy wants you to be in his press conference. And we go out. And I remember thinking I didn't wash my hair. And I remember I was wearing a blue jacket, but I didn't have a shower the morning of the flight. And I'm thinking, oh my God, my hair looks terrible. That was it. And then he just and sat me down, did a whole thing. And my parents we were the last off the plane. And my parents were standing there like waving at me. I could see them hand, they're like, hi. And I'm sitting there, and he made a huge fuss of me, got me to sign an autograph. And then front page newspapers all over Australia. Sammy signs up Sally. And that was in the paper. So no one spoke to me. If they spoke to me, it was nasty. I got a really rough time. But you know what? I just focused on the work. And I remember being upset because I thought, are they a real friend? Do they just like me for me? If someone was nice to me, I'd be suspicious. I got over that. But I was like, I ended up finding one friend who was a few years older than me, Donna, who I'm still friends with as well. And she was in my neighborhood, and she was just no frills, like just really cool, down to earth, great fashion sense. We used to talk about fashion and things all the time. And Stevie Nicks was a big deal for us. So I found her, and my family, they went through a lot too, which I used to feel guilty about. There was nothing I could do about it. It wasn't my fault, kind of thing. That's how I felt. Like I didn't, sounds really childish, but I was like, well, I didn't ask to be on television. It just happened. My career's been like that. Everything has just happened to me. I'm probably more aggressive in my songwriting career. I'm really, really focused on that. When I say aggressive, I mean that's what I really want. But I never really wanted stardom or fame. It just happened.
So was it a conscious decision on your part then to stop focusing on acting or pursuing acting jobs and move back into the singing and performing and recording?
Well, it happened gradually because I always wrote songs or poetry, lots of poetry and songs, and I could play the piano. I'm quite good I'm good on piano, but guitar, I'm okay. But I can write on it, but I'm not great on it. I just in me. I mean, I don't ever sit down at the piano like a lot of songwriters. Well, it's not a lot, but some songwriters sit down every day and try and write a song. I'm not like that. They literally fly into my head. I know other songwriters, because people think that you're a bit nuts when you explain it. But I'll be doing the dishes. This happens quite a lot when I'm doing the dishes. I have no idea why.
I'll send you my dishes.
Yeah, okay. All right, I'll do them. All right, I'll come up and do it and come back to it like, oh, that's fine, it's a deal. And I'm like, oh, here we go. And I can hear the top line, the melody, and I know what the song is about. And I can hear all the instruments. And then I sit down at the piano and I work out the chords. And then I have a pen and paper and da-da-da-da. I write quite fast. Others I'll go back to and tidy up. But I write fast, and I never have to worry about writing another song. When I first started, Judy, I wrote some really good songs when I was 18, 19. I got my first publishing deal with EMI, which was a big deal. And they didn't know who I was. I just wrote good songs. They didn't know Sally Boyden, what I was in Australia. And I remember thinking, oh, my God, Naked December it's called. And I thought, I'm never going to write a song as good as that. And I was so precious about that song. And but that's not the case. And so it just happens. Through my teen years, I was in America and I was 17. Then I did Little Dragons with Curtis Hanson. Then I went back to Australia. I would go back to Australia to work. There was a show in Australia called The Sullivans, which is not unlike the Waltons, set in the war. Similar vibe, like it was a classic show. A big deal, like the Waltons. And they wrote a part for me, which was 12 weeks or something. And that was similar to the Waltons in the fact that it was just clockwork. Everything was smooth. There was a lot of egos on that, though. And I had my first on-screen kiss, and I'd never kissed a boy in real life. I was 6. Yeah, I'd never kissed a boy. No one asked me out. Never had a date in Australia. No, or America, but I was working. So I never had a date.
Intimidating, I think it's intimidating for.
Yeah, well, that's what they all tell me now. If I go back to Australia, so I was so nervous, and it was my first day. They shot the kissing scene on the first day, and I didn't know anybody. And Jamie Higgins, who played Jeff in the show, I actually sang at his wedding. Like 30 years later, I sang at his wedding when I was in Australia, which was really cool. That was lovely. But Jamie and I meet. And the first scene is the kissing scene. And the crew actually played a little trick on us. And I am terrified. And it was only about 2 lines. We're sitting in a movie theatre. It's a real theatre called the Astor in St Kilda in Melbourne. So I get my makeup and hair, and I'm like, I've never kissed a boy, and I've got a kiss on screen. I'm going to freak out. So I just I was very good at keeping my composure. Very polite and very shy. Didn't talk that much. That has obviously changed. So we get there and, 2 lines each and then the kiss. And the kiss went on and on. It was just with his arm around me. And I was sitting there like this. I can't remember the exact time, but it seemed like eternity. It was probably 30 seconds or something. And they yelled cut, and then all the crew burst out laughing because they thought it was hilarious that like we had to kiss on the first day. We didn't know each other. I don't know. I don't see the humour in it, but I mean, I get why they did it. Probably boredom. So that was that, and that was a big deal in Australia.
Thank you for joining me for part 1 of my conversation with Sally Boyden. I will be back with more of my conversation with Sally, as well as more behind the scenes of the Waltons, more Ask Judy. Thanks for watching.